Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we're going to continue on with the Scottish Beer Month of reviews that I've been doing for you, and this is going to be video number 4 in that series. And again, this is a beer that I picked up from the Aldi Scottish Beer Festival range, and I've never heard anything about these guys until very recently when I bought them all. So we're going to go to the Isle of Islay over on the west coast of Scotland and have a taste of a beer from Islay Ales, and this is a very famous part of the country for sort of whisky malts and things like that, and there is also the Islay distillery down there as well, which is very famous. There's a lot of them down there, but this beer is Saligo Ale, which is a golden ale or blonde ale, however you want to describe it, but it's designed essentially to be a session ale, and it's meant to be very, very nice. So I look forward to doing the tasting part of this review with you. But as is usual with my reviews, we'll go through a very short history of the brewery. It's very short for this one, but if you don't want to stick with me for that, just fast forward a few minutes into the video and you will get straight to the tasting. The brewery website is in the video description for you below, so check that out if you're interested, and there is also a link there to my future reviews from Islay Ales that I will add to once I get home from Australia. So, Islay Ales was founded in 2003 by CAMRA members Paul Hathaway, Paul Capper and Walter Schobert. Now, Paul Capper moved to Islay in 1993, but he only became a full-time resident in 2003 after his retirement from the Midlands Fire Service in England. Now, Walter Schobert retired to stay in Islay after many years working as the curator of the German Film Museum in Frankfurt, and Paul Hathaway moved to Islay having had a long desire to live and work there, and his wife Liz actually serves as the company secretary, and she's also quite heavily involved with the Scottish Society for the Protection of Birds on the island. Now, the brewery has a very small brewing operation. They have a small 4-barrel brewing plant that produces all their ales in cask and bottle conditioned format, so all of the beers are never filtered or pasteurised. Their brewing equipment was supplied and installed by Dave Porter of Porter Brewing Company, and he actually oversaw the brewing of the first batch of beer using this equipment, and the bottling plant came from the Leek Brewery in Staffordshire down in England. But they tend to use Bramley Cross, Fugal and Golding hops from England in their beers, also Amarillo and Mount Hood from the States, and also Bobek hops from Slovenia, and they do use a very select malt profile for a lot of their beers as well. Check out the brewery website if you want to have a look at more of the things that they do there. They actually do have quite an interesting section on their sort of brewing methods and all the different ingredients that they use in their beer. It's quite a good little website they've got there for such a small brewery, so check that out if you are interested. But let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So I'll bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one here. So this guy is a 4.4% golden ale. As I mentioned to you, it's called Saligo Ale, and it has the sort of, you can just see on the artwork of this one there, you can see the outline of the Isle of Islay on there. Very beautiful island apparently. My friend Sean's from there, so I'll need to see if I can go down with him one time and have a look at it. But you can see the nice little sort of Celtic rune patterns around there. There's a lot of standing stones and things that have these patterns around Scotland on them. It's very nicely presented, this beer though, and I do think it's very nice. It has a little bit of thing on the side. It says yeast is the hallmark of a natural beer and produces a sparkle and sediment characteristic of all living beers. Store upright, serve lightly chilled and pour with care to leave the natural sediment in the bottle. The optimum serving temperature for this beer is apparently 12 degrees Celsius. It's 4.4% on the Richter scale. It does have just a little bit of information on the side as well. It says Saligo Ale is brewed using pale, lager and wheat malts, water and yeast. The hops used are Goldings and Bramling's Cross. This ale is named after Saligo Bay on the west coast of the island of Islay. So a very nice little beer there. It's a plain bottle cap on this one, but let's get it out and get on with the tasting then. So it's a 4.4% golden or blonde ale, however you want to describe it. It's a session beer anyway. So as you can see, a nice kind of smoky opening on this one. We'll just get it out and into the glass. It's behaving itself, this one. Not too much of a head there. We'll try and give it a little bit more of an aggressive pour, just get a little bit more on it. Yeah, that's pouring quite nicely. We'll get the rest of it out in a minute, but we'll just have a wee smell of it just now. So you can see there's a nice solid finger of a white frothy head on this guy. If I bring it up to the camera there and just bring the light up a little bit so you can see, it's definitely a kind of slightly hazy pale golden straw. You can see my fingers just slightly through there. It's quite an opaque one, but definitely a kind of pale orangey golden straw colour, this one. Really nice looking beer. A good bit of carbonation in this one again, so looks like it'll be a really nice kind of crisp sort of session ale, this one. You can see the head is just kind of going down slightly there. But in terms of the aroma of this guy, it's got a lot of kind of grassy and kind of citric hops in it. There's a little bit of maybe just a tiny touch of grapefruit, but it's mainly citrusy and grassy hops that are coming out here. But there's a good underline of kind of bread and straw character in this one. Nice kind of caramel and bread. A bit of yeasty character as well. But it's mainly that kind of fresh, grassy and citric character that's popping out of this one. That's the main component of the aroma. But it smells quite light, definitely. Almost has a tiny little bit of a kind of... It really does smell like a kind of fresh bread, but you have to sugar it up to get the kind of malty aromas out of it. It is mainly a kind of grassy and citric hop character that's coming out of this one. So let's get the last little bit of it out, and then we'll get on the tasting here. So there you are. That's it sorted, and we'll get on with the tasting. So this is my first beer review from Islay Ales on the Isle of Islay over on the west coast of Scotland. A very beautiful part of the country, and if you are visiting, definitely go and check out the sort of western part of Scotland. That's definitely the most beautiful part. So let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on here. Now this is a really interesting one. It's got a really kind of unusual fruity sweetness that comes in at the start, and then it sort of fades away to be more of a kind of bready, malty beer, I think. We'll just sugar it up a little bit here. But it's got definitely a kind of grainy malt to it, actually. It tastes... The malt base definitely has some element of cereal character to it. You can definitely taste that, and there's a little bit of the wheat coming through as well. With just a little bit of spice, and maybe it is perhaps just the kind of spicy wheat character popping through there. But yeah, it's a very sweet one, this, actually. There's a lot of the kind of... There's a very kind of citricy lemon feel to this one, actually. It's not as sharp as you would think lemon would be, but there's a hell of a lot of citrusy and grassy character coming out here. Yeah, you just feel a lot of this citrusy lemon coming out at the front of the tongue here, just going around the edges there and having a little sweet character in the back and just over in the centre of the tongue there. It's really quite interesting, actually, how it does that. But it just fades to be a very kind of bready and slightly spicy wheat beer. Well, not really a Weiss beer. It has that kind of slightly spicy wheat character coming out just on top of a kind of quite light kind of pale bready malt. That's what you would expect from the pale malts. They're not too prominent in terms of being like a really kind of full bready malt base. This guy has a very, very light malt base. It's mainly the hop character that's coming out in this one. Yeah, I would stick with that. It has a very, very kind of subdued malt character. Just a little bit of bread, a tiny wee hint of caramel going up the middle of the palate there, and just the bready malts kind of stick towards the back of the tongue, but around the edge you're definitely getting this very, very lemony citric character. There's just a little bit of grassy flavours in there as well. But it's, you know, the main component of this beer definitely is the kind of citrusy lemon. Yeah, that's all you can really say about it. The kind of sweet lemony flavour just rolls over the tongue and kind of moves gradually back as you keep going on with it. It's really interesting in that regard, as it's almost as if it's kind of really pushing the fruity flavours, which when you've got a German guy behind the brewery, it's quite kind of unusual in that sense, but it's very interesting nonetheless. But yeah, it's a very, very fruity kind of session ale. Oh, in terms of the mouthfeel, it's very, very light body. This is one of the lightest beers I've ever tried, actually, now that I think about it. It's got quite moderate carbonation, but it's got a nice, really wet mouthfeel to it, and that kind of helps bring out this kind of lemony citric flavour that just kind of spreads around the edge of the tongue. So it's very, very sessionable. And it's actually quite dry in the finish as well. The sort of grassy and aromatic character that complements this lemon citrus really does make it a little bit dry, particularly around the edge of the palate, like I'm saying. But overall, I mean, if you do like a very, very kind of lemony, citric and fruity session ale with a good bit of aromatic character into it as well, this is probably one for you to check out. I have to admit, I do like my sort of session ales to have a little bit more of a bready character, and this one is very, very fruity. So, but if you like that, you know, this is definitely one for you to check out. So, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been quite interesting to try my first beer from the Saligo Ales. I've quite enjoyed it. It is a very, very fruity one, which I'm not quite used to, I have to admit. So, I will try some others from the range and see how I get on with those. I'd recommend you try this one if you like a very kind of fruity session ale, as I said. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. I hope you're enjoying the Scottish Beer Month that I'm doing for you. And please let me know in the comment section if you do happen to have tried this beer yourself, and as always, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you tomorrow with the next in the series of the Scottish Beer Month. Cheers.